A very, very warm welcome to everybody who's present here in our webinar today. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome you all. I'm Pallavi Banerjee. I take care of marketing for the Samia region from LRQA. And we have two really esteemed and accomplished people with us as speakers today. I'd first like to introduce Mr. Venkat Kupusamy from LRQA, who's the General Manager, Global Key Accounts with LRQA. He has 3 decades plus of professional experience, and because of that, he's an extremely well-known name in the industry. He is also a lead auditor for various ISO standards like 9001, 14001, 45001, 50001, and some more. So Venkat, a very, very warm welcome to you to our session today. Our next speaker is a very special guest. He is our client from JK Fenner India, which is a leading power transmission solution provider here. Mr. Dinesh is the AVP and the plant head at JK Fenner India Madurai plant with close to 30 plus years of industrial experience. He needs no introduction. He is also a very well-known name in the industry. So an extremely warm welcome to you, Mr. Dinesh, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So, Venkat, without much ado, I'll hand over the session to you, and yes, you can take it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pallavi, for giving such a wonderful introduction. And let me also thank Dinesh for joining us at a very short notice. Today's topic is shaping a better future together. And for the sustainable, how we can have a sustainable and cost-effective business growth by using a tool. In this case, we are going to talk about how to make use of ISO 50001 and 14001 as a standard towards achieving a sustainable business growth, a cost-effective business growth for that matter. And then it's going to be much more interesting, and we shall try to spend about 30-40 minutes in this session. And then I shall hand it over to Mr. Dinesh to talk about a few words on the topic, about his journey towards how he has gone about at JK Fenner. Now, to talk about the sustainability, about 93% of the world, about the corporate houses, big corporate houses have already started the sustainability part of it. What is sustainability then? It is it demands, the sustainability demands the business is very varied and increasing, like in the sense it is not that about various people have done a study, as Statistica has done, IBM has done, as statistical studies, and Deloitte has done, and many other, for that matter, PwC have done a study, and then they have come to a conclusion about 75% of the people talking about, I want to have a GHG inventory need out to be taken. About 73% of the people giving a priority with respect to responsible production. Of course, the plastic waste management part of it, responsible plastic management also has come into fore now. And another 70% of the people, when as per the Deloitte, they are talking about how to reduce my energy consumption, because energy part of it constitutes about 5 to 10% to 15% of the operational cost in some of the organizations. How I have to minimize that energy consumption part of it reduction. And quite a few of them, we are talking about as per CIPD, they are talking about how the employee has to be motivated by giving them a good environment, a safe work environment to them, occupational health and safety part of it. How is that they can be done? And the rest, so another 76% of the people, as per the PwC, talking about my diversity, inclusivity, that people have to be, that is what they motivates them, and that's what their priorities about quite a 76 people are telling. And now, after the COVID pandemic has struck, the supply chain has taken a beating. So the supply chain, how to see that the supply chain can be spawned, the throughput, even what they make, if the supply chain are not able to be on your heels for that matter, then your production suffers, your power consumption, other specific power consumption, and the other thing also increases if they are not onto your toes. So how the supply chain need have to be synchronized with your pace of production, with your demands, how they need have to be. So after this pandemic, many people have felt that as one of the important and necessity for it also. So now, going further, What are the basic towards sustainability? Okay, we have talked about, so we have to be remain sustainable in our business growth. We have to have a sustainability. All these factors which we talked about need out to be included in your business processes. But what way, the practice, what are the practices need out to be followed? If that is the question to be answered, the first one is the basic hygiene. I should meet the regulatory requirements. The regulatory requirements are basic hygiene needs. Like, I mean, could be a Factories Act requirement in our situation, could be the environmental requirements, the pollution control board requirements. These are some of the basic regulatory requirements needed to be met. And I have to improve my operational efficiency. With less input, I have to maximize my output. I have to improve my yield in my manufacturing process. I have to reduce my consumable consumptions for that sake. I have to reduce my power and the fuel consumption also, so that my margins can be met. In an organization, primarily, if an operational cost constitutes of the wages, the raw material cost, the fuel and power cost, and the consumables cost for that matter. These are the primary contribution for any organization towards the operational cost. You cannot touch on the raw material cost. You cannot touch on the wages. The only the two parameters where you can touch about to bring about a reduction in the operations being the consumables. Could be in terms of the lube oil, could be in terms of toolings what you use, could be in form of the other ones which are indirect materials which support the productions are all called the consumables. And then the secondly about the other one, the third point of it which I was referring to is the fuel cost. Could be the power what you're deriving getting from the grid, and the fuel oil what you're using. These two things are to be minimized. If I can tell before we proceed further, the summary of today's discussion would be how these two can be brought about, about 50,001 and 14,001. When we focus on the 14,001 to reduce the consumable cost for that sake, like how the coolant oil, the lube oil, and of course the fuel oil also for that matter, how that can be reduced so that that much of an impact to the environment is minimized. And the power consumption towards from the grid what you draw, that's also a fossil fuel, and also the energy source use and consumption part of it, how to minimize that its utilization. And that's what is ISO 50,000 all about. So both gel together very well. And if you can understand, then you can minimize the consumption of power consumption in your organization. Thereby, then you can set for, if I've exceeded certain limits, this was the one, if I have to become a carbon neutral, what is the excess which I could not reduce in my operation, which I could not conserve, which I can minimize it, that how I can offset it also. And that is what is all about. And that is what is the decarbonization and other things which it enables you, it helps you for that sake to go about. And the third one is the people. Like, you have to take care of the people, and that's what's to have a sustainable practices. And then the sustainable growth you need out to have, take care of the people, to motivate the people. One of the primary thing to motivate the people is to take care of their well-being, is to take care of their occupational health and safety aspect of it, so they get motivated. And of course, the last one is to meet the client demands, and thereby you are there and are staying ahead of the competition. So all these things forms the basic practices that you need have to go about for sustainable growth. Today's webinar, we are going to cover about, I told in a nutshell about what is energy, part of ISO 50,000 and 14,001, and that's what we are going to build up further. And I may be repeating it quite often also during this seminar, so that it reaches your mind and you know for that matter where to start and how to go for a sustainable growth for the sake. So we'll start with the need for the energy and environmental management system for business growth. And the framework of ISO 50,001, we'll try to pay justification within the duration of what we are going to interact with, and how 14,001 and 50,001 will help in decarbonization. Of course, what is the current business scenario or various business scenario, how that energy are the major guzzlers for that we will study. And then we'll also look into the methodology to arrive at the specific energy consumption, because many people get blinded. They say, look here, I've already installed a renewable energy source in form of wind energy and solar energy. So I'm very comfortable with that. I need not have to focus on energy anymore. But they fail to understand the use and consumption part are the ones which can be a sustainable savings what you get. So we'll talk about the use and consumption part of it, how to arrive at to reduce the specific energy consumption. And of course, both the standards look for the compliance for that sake. The compliance as far as the environment is concerned, the pollution control board requirements you need to comply with. And of course, there are PAT scheme and other scheme which are there, which are driving for the major industries, which are power guzzling industries. And those, they have told how they need how to reduce the energy consumption year on year and the specific energy consumption part of it. That's what how you can remain compliant with these standards put together. And then, of course, I leave it for question and answer session sometime later. Need for energy management. See, to improve the economies of scale of operations is well known, and the people have to be competent and they need have to be aware of. And to achieve and to derive or to gain the energy savings, there has to be an effective communication within the data. What you gather need have to be shared with the people. The people need have to know at their processes, this much of energy being consumed in my previous month, in my previous shift, and what is that I'm going to reduce during the upcoming shift, or what is that I can contribute? What are the variables associated with the process? And those variables, how I'm going to minimize so that my power consumption is reduced. So that type of a data analysis, it enables you. That's what is required. And to achieve net zero, I've already spoken about net zero. First of all, you should know how much you are consuming within your operation boundaries. And that, or the operation boundaries, we can call it as, or otherwise, then the standard now in a different standard of ISO 14064, it talks about a new word has come, reportable boundaries, where all you are getting reported as far as the operation is concerned. So to achieve a net zero, what is that? You can, this management system will enable you to draw a baseline and to understand this is what it is, and I have to improve from here to more. May I request others to mute their microphone, please? Thank you. And to demonstrate compliance, many of you will ask a question, hey, it's not related to me at all for that matter. I'm having a computer center, or we are in a data center. Actually, we are now working on that. How am I going to contribute to the energy saving? Please understand, ladies and gentlemen, the digitalization consumes 10% of the world's electricity, out of which I would say 30% of that is taken by the terminals. Could be the computers, could be mobile phones, blah blah blah. Those things are the terminals for the sake, and the rest of it, about 30% is the data centers, and 40% is the network is taking out of those 10% of that. So they do guzzle power, they do take. So it's, you cannot be, if a computer is switched on, maybe 35 watt, I mean, that's what it may draw for that matter. Electric, that's what is the rated electric, part of it of a computer, of a 17-inch computer. If you just take it, if it's kept switched on by 24/7 for the year, it consumes close to 842 kilowatt, and that corresponds to 340 kg of carbon dioxide emitted by one single system. Please note it. And if you're having multiples of that, you can multiply it and see how much of that ton equivalent of carbon it may contribute to also for that sake. The other industry is the textile industry. They have got a very pathetic record. The dryers are very primitive, and it operates only at 60% efficiency. The spinning and weaving part of it constitutes 30% of that, or 25, 28% of it. The rest of it, the drying part, the chemical treatment part of it in the textile industry guzzles more. Of course, the chemicals, for that sake, you can say the benzene, toluene, ethylenes, and other manufacturing of these chemicals guzzles more power. And the food processing industry is not an exception. Its distribution part of it, and the product mix for that matter, also plays a role. If I'm going to make a wafer, potato wafer for that matter, the temperature, the moisture content will be reduced to about 2%. So if I have to reduce the moisture content of a potato to 2%, I have to spend more amount of an energy over there. The carbon footprint for the product will be much higher. If I'm just making the finger chips for that sake, the demand is not that much to reduce the water content of that. So in the same product with the same basic material, you can see the energy consumption varying, the carbon footprints varying amongst the different products too also. The other industries being cement and the pulp, paper pulp industry consumes more amount of an energy. And in these industries, you see the significant energy variables are different. That we shall see it so shortly. And the goal of ours is to reduce the specific power consumption. Always I talk about the specific power consumption as per unit of production, how much it is. What are the positive factors which drives to achieve that goal? Being, yes, we are in a situation. If you ask me, last November 2021, we were in a very grave scenario of the paper, the leading papers carrying a title of "The coal will not be available. The coal reserves is only available for 2 days." Never in our lifetime those who are attending, or including everyone for that sake, we have never seen the petrol price going up to a 3-digit number. Have you ever seen that 110, 111 rupees it went up to? Thankfully, it is now 102 or something. Still, it is in the 3 digits. So these are the situations which drives us or kicks us to go in for reducing of energy consumption. Of course, this is what is called the what do you call a field factor diagram, that to tell what are the positive forces and the negative forces of it. So energy efficient technologies which are available to an extent, yes, and the incentive of high power factor. The power factor plays a vital role, yes, and the top management commitment to energy conservation. There's a drive from the top management. You have to reduce because it's a business concern for me. And of course, energy is a relatively a component of a production cost. I mean, that's what I was saying. It depends on the organizations. It may vary from 3% to 15 to 16% of their operational cost, even the energy consumption, depending on the type of organization, how energy intensive they are. And negative forces being absence of a corporate policy. We have seen, of course, many of the corporate houses have come out with energy as one of the prime focal area, but I would say not about 6 out of 10 organizations only are driving an energy as one of our 6 out of 10 is also a big number, which I'm now sharing with you, slightly lesser than that even. And lack of awareness throughout the company. How many of you, Kaizen movements, we have seen, you walk inside an organization, Kaizen movements are there for quality improvement and for customer satisfaction. You could see the boards, the signboards are there. But how many organizations have got a Kaizen improvement with respect to limiting or minimizing the consumption of energy? Who has given such a input to them? Have they got about? I could not see. In fact, in my career so far, if I had seen, only I can count about 3-4 organizations have brought in this concept about Kaizen towards minimizing the power consumption and the people getting awarded also. Even some of the organizations have got a process validation. I do a process validation. Automotive industry does a lot of process validation. But when you do a process validation, the element of power consumption is not taken into account anywhere also for that matter. So lack of awareness throughout the company is another negative force, and insufficient skills of the knowledge available. And of course, the competing corporate priorities that when they compete with respect to the pricing, they compete with respect to the quality. They want to be there, but the power consumption, the carbon footprints for that sake, how much has gone about in their product, they are blinded to that extent. So insufficient financial resources also find its place, which plays a role as far as the negative forces are concerned. Yeah. So let us look at the need for 14,001. A few minutes back, I did mention it to you that while ISO 50,001 looks about the source, use, and consumption of power with respect to the fuel oil, with respect to the power what you get from the grid, and then make use of it and minimize the specific power consumption. Whereas in 14,001, yes, it has got also embraces the same a bit, but it goes beyond that also in terms of what's the yield, how much of solid waste you generate. Why do you sell it? Well, I mean, the solid waste what you generate is high because the yield has not been better. If I'm using a steel industry, the excess amount of scrap what I'm generating, the yield has been poor. The solid waste increases. How to minimize that? If I'm a rubber component manufacturing industry, my purging of after every batch of materials, I do have to purge it in my extruder. So that much amount of a waste because the rubber gets burnt. The rubber cannot be used. Of course, some people say, no, there is no rejection at all, so we reprocess it for that matter. The rubber is taken back. But how much of amount of energy has already been spent on that component, which should have been invoiced for that sake? So these are the yield is the one important. The solid waste generation is important. And even some of the painting and other things, they say, look here, I've got a good legal requirements. I'm satisfying the legal requirements as far as the paint sludge generation is concerned. For a given surface area, how much you should use the paint for that matter. These many grams should have been used, but this much of a delta X I've used extra because for the sake it has gone down as a sludge. And how I can minimize it? This is the process efficiency. So the 14,001, which we are focusing on, is with respect to the efficiency in those processes to minimize my solid waste generation. Thereby, my power consumption also gets reduced for a component what I'm producing, and it's a win-win situation for both the organization and to the customer and to your bottom line also for the sake. So that is what is the intent of having a 14,001, and it also promotes the circular economy. How the steel, for a steel industry, if an aluminum for that matter, of an automotive industry, I'm using a lot of aluminum components which do come in. how that is being circulated, that is getting back. If I getting an aluminium from an aluminium ore, like if you take it from an ore and you process into billets, and then you make it up into sheets, and then making use of it, and then make you that billets made using the foundry in various forms, the cost is much higher, because from the ore, converting that into the component what you're manufacturing, the power consumption is high. The circular economy of its scrap, how it is getting reused and then it comes back to you, that much, about 50 to 60% of the power consumption is getting minimized. So how do you propose the circular economy? How do you encourage the circular economy, for that matter? That disposal can be through incineration, disposal can be through a landfill, could be through recycling, for that matter. So all these processes have got a different value of GHG emissions. You can calculate it, and thereby you can promote that concept of it gives, or the need for having a sustainability movement, or to minimize my carbon greenhouse gas emissions. It'll enable you to an extent. And of course, improvement in cost controls. And of course, the later part of it, we talked about the basic hygiene of compliance with the legal requirements. And you will enable, it enables you to manage the environmental risk. Risk is nothing but the severity and the occurrence part of it. So the occurrence of that, how we can minimize, having a good management system in place of, in this case, of 14,001, so that the occurrence of you violating the legal requirements or exceeding the pollution control board requirements, exceeding in this case, I'm talking negative, sometimes many times exceeding in the case always talked in terms of positive, but I'm talking about violating the requirements. And of course, it will enable you for a quick process changes, because all the management system talks about how you can control a process change when you make, because any changes what you make has to be controlled, has to be validated before it's getting implemented also. Of course, both the standards have got the same, like in the sense, the high level structured document remains the same. Like you have to understand the context, you have to understand the external and the internal issues. The external issues, now we have seen enough examples we have got, could be the taxation, could be the GST, could be the pandemic, could be the external issues. Under these situations, how you can still run the business and satisfy the stakeholders associated with the process. Internal being the supply chain is an internal issue, like how to take care of the supply chain, and how do I have to maintain my workforce also for that sake, their demands. So all this context of the organization is determined, and that context is directly taken into here, I would say, the risks and opportunity it gets converted to. And then you need to understand the expectations of the interested parties. Of course, the interested parties who have invested on you, what do they expect? They want to have a higher market share, they want to have a high profit margins. This is what is the basic requirement of any stakeholders for that sake. And of course, if it's a banker, that you need to pay them with the interest also for that sake. So these are some of the basic needs and expectations of the interested parties, and the leadership has to stay committed. Not committed in the sense, the standard uses a very strong word, need to stay accountable. When they are accountable to their people, accountable to other stakeholders with whom they are interacting with. And of course, the people who are working with them has to be competent, and the operational plannings and controls, they need to make it. So this remains the same, the structure remains the same for both the standards, how you need to implement. And this one slide, I'll try to explain you the entire energy management system for that sake, for you to understand thoroughly. The first step towards, I want to minimize my power consumption. I want to stay energy efficient for that sake. If that is a demand which you've got, I need to have to conduct an energy review. What's the energy review about? I'll swap it up here and then explain it so that it becomes clear. The energy review is based on the energy consumption. I've got an organization. This is what my organization is. I'm manufacturing a steel industry. The steel industry, if I'm doing, what is the major energy, significant energy use is what? The significant energy use is a melting process. And if I'm a fabrication industry, what is that significant energy uses? The significant energy uses welding, what do you call, that is what it is, shearing of the sheet metals, the cutting equipments, what I have got. They are the power guzzlers. So you have to identify the significant energy use. If I'm a electronics industry, then the wave soldering operations could be, or the AHUs, what I have got, are the significant energy use for that sake. So identifying it will enable you to identify the significant energy use in your operations. So every significant energy use have got associated with a significant variable. So you have to identify what are the variables which affects or which impacts this as a significant use. The use goes high. So I was mentioning a few seconds back. Let me recollect you all for once again, like energy source, energy use, and energy consumption. These are the 3 points which I was talking. Source, you forget it. Source, the people say, I'm deriving it from the grid, or I'm just purchasing power I've got from a different agency I'm purchasing, or I've got renewable energy built up somewhere, like in terms of solar and wind, and it goes to the grid and I'm getting those benefit. All those things is a source. There's a one-time investment. There's a one-time you gain the advantage of it. That has got a fixed return of investment also. For that sake, if you invest it, the next day or the next year, you don't get the margins. Sorry, you do not get as a profit. It has to have 6 years, 7 years later, you may be getting that benefit. Then what are the other two things which are sustainable, which I was mentioning you? Use and consumption. Use, it could be used for heat, light, ventilation, as I was mentioning, melting, machining, transportation. That is a use. And towards that use, what is the consumption? And it should have been this much, and why it has exceeded this much. And that's what you should focus on. And that is what is for that use, what is the significant variables? As I was mentioning, if it is a foundry, you take it. I melted the steel metal, I melted it, but my molds are not ready. I cannot tap it for that sake. So I have to keep the liquid metal in the furnace. I have to keep it for some more time till that mold gets ready. So the variables there are synchronization of the process for that sake, so that I can minimize, because the steel industry guzzles more power. And you take anything like a textile industry, I was mentioning it, the drying part of it. What is the significant? The drying. So the moisture content of the fabric, whatever it is, plays a dominant role. Or what are the chemical treatment, what I'm doing, that plays a dominant role for that sake. So those variables need have to be attended on to minimize my specific power consumption. And that is what the energy review is going to focus you to that extent. And it will enable you, this is what the energy use and the trends I've got. And this is what is the future energy use and consumption I'm looking at. I'm going to augment my capacity. I'm going to add these many equipments a few years later. So, and this is what it's going to consume. So I want still my specific power consumption need have to be low. So what is that you're going to do? Opportunities for energy performance improvement you can identify. Of course, I need have to talk to you what is energy performance indicators and energy baselines. We'll talk in a few seconds. And it enables this energy review, sets those energy performance indicators and the baselines. And of course, with these, you can draw an objective from this level. And I want to a component A manufactured at 100 kilowatt hour per ton of what I'm producing. I want to reduce it to 99 kilowatt hour per ton what I'm going to produce henceforth by following these methodologies for that sake. So that will enable you to minimize and sustain the savings what you have achieved. So when I was telling about what is, I'll go back to the previous slide. So what are the energy performance indicators and what is the baseline? Maybe this will enable you to understand much better. See, energy performance indicators are, as I was mentioning it to you a few minutes back, many a times in an organization when you walk across and then find, hey, why this time your power consumption has increased? Sir, our volumes have increased, and here's the reason the power consumption has increased. And he will look at you as if I've asked a strange or a stupid question. But they forgot about the concept of, even if I make 100 tons, or if I make 50 tons, or if I'm going to make 1 ton also, I need have to, of course, there has to be a basic threshold limits that need to be maintained, because you have to see how the graph goes. What is the threshold limit the planning department has to plan, so that you can still keep the power consumption low. So when the specific power consumption you determine, that's what it is, and with the basic threshold limits of a volume of a production need have to be done, then you can set the power indicators, or what energy power the indicators being, the performance indicators being kg per ton, or kilowatt hour per ton, or kilocalories per ton, or ton equivalent of carbon. So these are some of the indicators. You can take it that way. And then with that in mind, you said, which year should I have to take a baseline? Well, 2020, no one takes it as a baseline, because 2020 you have been smitten badly by the pandemic, and the production was not at its peak, and the demand was not at its peak. So no one tries to take 2020 as a baseline. You can lean back, or 2018 or 2019, with this type of a product mix, with this type of a demand, I could still get this much amount of a per kg of my production, per ton of my production, I've achieved this. So I will take that as a baseline. People take that as a baseline. And then for that reporting period, for this financial year, I'll take that as a baseline, and I will try to improve. And I'll set a target, and this is what the target's been set. And if you still perform at this level, and this is what is a total improvement from the baseline what you are getting. and that's what it is. So the energy reviews enables you to set a baseline, and the baseline you are determining it with the year or the period where you were comfortable with, or it was really demanding, and that will really pay you back in terms of an advantage. That part of it that you need to take and work on. And this is what is the one which this management system enables you. And of course, this all leads to a continual improvement. And that is what is the sustainable energy performance you can strive for and achieve together. So of course, the other point of it I did discuss about the needs and expectations of the interested parties here. Of course, you have to have a planning, identification of the risks and opportunities. I didn't mention it, it's the severity and occurrence part of it. Any management system looks for the severity you cannot eliminate, the occurrence only you can eliminate having a good management system. The occurrence can be eliminated, or sorry, cannot be eliminated, can be brought down to say by means of a good operational control, by competent people, but good monitoring and measurement, and of course, good emergency preparedness response plan. You can draw it and see that you are there, and that even if it occurs, if something untoward occurs for that sake, how I'm going to take it to minimum. That's what it is, and that's what it's all about here. So you make a commitment before the start of the financial year. This is what is the objectives I'm setting, and of course, you assess the performance, set goals for that sake, and then you create. And this is what is the continual improvement which you can look for, and you can keep reassessing yourself when you are not achieved, and that becomes a non-conformance part of it. Analyze that. A non-conformance is not for a bad sake. Always the non-conformance gives an input for a continual improvement. So thereby you can analyze the data, why you could not achieve, and then go about. Of course, the key NMS requirements being you can reduce the energy cost. You can reduce your energy cost. I'll just make it slightly bigger so that for you to have a look at it better. Reduce your energy cost, of course, demonstrate your commitment to reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute to the climate change. Yes, today that's the topic which is going on. As I was mentioning it to you, that we have also been promised, or we have also committed as a nation, we have committed by 2070 we'll become carbon neutral, and by 2030 we will try to reduce significantly. And every nation has got its own agenda. If every nation has got its own agenda, when you are exporting your components to those countries, you know what their demand will be to you, and they may demand what is the carbon footprints of the products what you are exporting to them. That situation is coming up. It's a very challenging situation that you need to get prepared for it, and towards getting prepared for it, the energy management system will be enabling you to understand within the boundaries and the boundaries within your control how much you are spending or consuming fuel, and what is that you are emitting as a greenhouse gas emission. That's very important. Improve organizational performance, it enables you, and of course it increases the efficiency. I was telling the yield, improving the yield. That's nothing but with less input, maximizing your output, and it enables you to achieve a higher productivity, boost your customer satisfaction, and it improves your reputation for that matter, because you have violated the legal and statutory requirements, and you are taking care of the people with whom you are associated with, and you are very much caring for them, and that's how it enables you, like the people, profit, and the planet. That's what the 3 P's we always try to talk about. To the people you are socially accountable for, how's that, and to the planet you are accountable in terms of minimizing my carbon footprints for that sake, minimizing the use of the fuel, whatever form I'm using it. And of course, the profit part of it will fall in place if you take care of these 2 things. And that's what is the 3P one, which the people do talk in a language, understand. And this is nothing but to make you understand the leader, as I was mentioning you in the previous slides, that he has to stay accountable and has to stay committed, so that he forms the nucleus. And of course, it's nothing but plan, do, check, act cycle. Act is on the non-conformity, plan and do on the implementation, and you have to evaluate its performance. That forms a check. Here, I would like to spend a few minutes here, a few seconds here for that sake, for you to understand. This is a hierarchy. We have heard about hierarchy in occupational health and safety. What is the hierarchy in the occupational health and safety we focus on? There we talk about what you call eliminate, substitute, and then you look for engineering controls and look for administrative controls, and then look for what is the PP as the one. That's the hierarchy which we follow. Even in energy also, you try to imbibe the culture of making this hierarchy. What's prevention? Like, in the sense, prevention is, I've seen in many organizations, what they do, they got two, I'll tell very many examples for you to understand. They've got two boilers. One boiler as a standby. I've seen in a few organizations, standby boiler, and another boiler which is in operation. And if you just compare these two boilers, I asked them the efficiency of these two boilers. The boiler which is kept idle consumes less than, what do you call it, its efficiency is better, say 85% of that. And the boiler which is in operation is only 79%, and that boiler is fully utilized. Again, here the people out of, I will not say wantedly, out of ignorance part of it, they need have to know. In another organization, the recent past when I went, I had seen the DG set. There are two DG sets running, called 150 kVA one and another close to 100 kVA sets. I was asking the rated load of these two equipment at that point in time. One was running at 65% load, and another one close to 20 to 30% load it was. I was asking, why don't you load it fully? No, sir, the equipment manufacturers told not to exceed beyond 90%. Without, that's again, the equipment manufacturers have given a right information or not, that's a different question, but you need have to challenge. And when I called them up from the site to the manufacturer, is it so? He told, no, never. We can go up to 95%, sir. Who told? More than 98%. The endurance test of that manufacturing of that equipment, they do it at 110% and they run it. And then they say the life cycle of that component at that rated load and the endurance test is performed. And how can he be advised that not beyond 90? Is again the awareness part of it, which we saw in the previous slides. So, and from there on, they were trying to use that 95% of that one DG set kept idle for that sake, preventing, and only in the case of an emergency, if that goes bad for that sake, this will be made use of. Similarly, the material handling equipment. I have seen many had material handling equipment in an organization. They never look at what is the consumption. The data analysis is not done. How much of power being or the fuel being consumed by those 5 to 6 material handling units, what they've got. If one guzzles more, they can prevent using it from them. It can still kept as a standby and they can attend on to it if needed. So prevention, reduction, how that can be reduced. Of course, I'm not saying repairing and damage. I don't advocate it. I'm sorry. It can be seen by reducing its operation hours. Like, if I'm, how it can be reduced? Yes, in the pandemic time, I've seen many organizations, the demand is very less, but they start the equipment, be the calendaring machine, or for that matter, the fabric calendaring, or the mills, for that matter, it starts at 8 o'clock. And it ends up at the shift ends at 2 o'clock for that sake, and the shift starts at 7. They start at 7, and then the quantity what they have loaded it is less than about 60-70%, more less than 60%. So if they start at 11 o'clock and then end up at 2 o'clock for that matter, the full utilization does happen and the load is happening, and then even that much amount of energy saving can be happened. That's the reduction part of it. And then the power factor from 0.86 to 0.96, if you just take it up to that level, I'm not talking about 0.99 also for that sake, 0.96 even for that sake, you will be able to reduce that 11 to 12% of the active kVA can be, what we call reduction can be there, and at the peak losses can be reduced up to 21% also. So this need have to be thought about. Reuse of the waste energy, that is how the waste heat recovery can be done. The people fail to understand that, like, and the disposal, of course, inefficient equipment should be disposed. If you just follow this hierarchy, it will mean a lot for the continuous improvement for that sake, gentlemen. So please try to follow this hierarchy as far as energy management is concerned. Of course, route to compliance, energy audits and environmental audits also route to compliance, and of course you've got display of energy certificates. You can have green deal assessment. Of course, in UK and Europe, the green deal assessment for domestic areas is also done. So that also leads to compliance route. So it drives you towards achieving, or or to remain compliant all the time. So that's another one. Of course, we do energy efficiency audits. That's what our core strength also. We have been doing it for a long time. How does it differ from the conventional energy audits? The conventional energy audits look for the equipment. They've got an equipment to sell. Actually, if you just look at various organizations are there, I don't want to mention the names, which you all know. They've got something to sell, so they start with the equipment. Could be with the compressors they talk, or they start with the DG sets, or they start with the utilities only in first place. But we start with the process, the systems and the processes, because that is what, with low investment or no investment, you can try to achieve a sustainable savings. And of course, then later we focus on the utility network and the equipment part of it. because we don't have anything to sell when we don't manufacture anything except for the knowledge which we share to the team of people, and our process experts look into. That's the way it is. So with these inputs, now I would like to invite Dinesh. I would like to tell about, though I mean, Pallavi has introduced Dinesh Davidson, and I know Dinesh since last 5 years or so, like close to 4.5 years. And why? I mean, and when I was just talking to Davidson, this is the program, and it was very short notice, and he did agree to it. But what I liked in him was when I approached him first, and it was when we were talking, he was highly passionate towards energy. He was looking at me to my eyes and then said, Venkat, can you look into the processes? I had a team of people have evaluated the utilities some time back, but we want to look at the processes. We are having the calendaring mills we have got. We have got what we call HSS, where the infrared heating is being done, and the pot curing operations we have got, the utilization of the pot, the excess space of the pot curing machines and other things, the utilization or the loading of that need to be studied. He threw many challenges, the VAM in the what we call chiller units. So the challenges he was talking about many, and I could see in him the natural desire, like in the sense if the organization need have to grow, that they need have to reduce the operational cost. That's what his core intent was then. And we started discussing that point in time, and we went about and we traveled together also for a certain distance as far as the energy part is concerned. So Dinesh, may I welcome you. Thank you for accepting at a short notice. And I would like you to just state your journey in the energy segment with your team of people, and how you have gone about in the last few years, which you took it as a challenge for yourself. Dinesh.
Thank you, Mr. Venkat. Thank you for your nice words, and warm greetings to all the audience. As you said, Mr. Venkat, we had association almost 5 years back. In 2019, we got the first connect. And when we first met, I was sharing our objectives. That is, we want to be a sustainable organization, and also we want to reduce the energy consumption cost. So as you said, the triple P was our focus area: people, profit, and planet. So it was your thoughts were in sync with our objectives. So we were immediately able to join together. And as you know, we are a rubber product manufacturing company. In a rubber product manufacturing company, always the energy cost is in the tune of above 7% to the revenue. Except the apart from raw material cost, the second highest cost element is the energy cost. And in our plant, we got two types of energy. One is the power, and second one is the steam generation cost.
Absolutely.
So when you came and we had the discussion, we had our own apprehensions, because we had earlier our own energy audits done by third parties, and our internal knowledge. With our internal knowledge also, we used to do the audits. So I thought, what new you are going to offer us? And I thought it would be very, very generic, which will not be really practical in implementation, because when we are discussing, it was my apprehension. But in the reality, when your team came, I saw a team which is well grounded and very knowledgeable in the area, and whatever they say, it had a very meaning in that, and it was a very good experience. And if I look back, when your people came and audited, and when they gave the low-hanging fruits, it was quite amazing to understand that without investment we can save around 65 lakhs, and with a little bit of investment, 50 lakhs investment, we can save another 50 lakhs. So with a period of 6 months, we were able to reap almost 1.5 crores savings, which is a recurring saving. And we're all very simple steps you took. If you look back, the power, you audit about the power factor. Then in the panels, as well as all the connectors, you talked about, you audit about the hotspots. Then the quite interesting thing is when you told I'll go to the process, I was having my apprehension that how you can change a process parameter, because we have got our own technical team which is deciding the process parameter. Then what new you are going to do? But the concept of reducing the tolerance was quite a very eye opener for our team also. So instead of having a wide band, why not you reduce the band and operate at the lower band? That itself gave us a very big benefit. All the savings of 65 lakhs without investment is because of that tolerance reduction only. Whether it can be a heating parameter tolerance, HSS or RQ. It can be a compressed air pressure tolerance. So like that, you are giving a lot of insights into how we can save energy with little bit of different type of approach to the problem. Similarly, you also made us understand about the potential saving the leaks, arresting the leaks, the air leaks. You demonstrated and you showed us a benefit in that. And now that somehow has become a practice for our team to take it forward, and we are able to sustain those benefits. Similarly, the boiler also you audited as a system and gave us inputs about how to recover the waste heat and how to minimize the radiation loss, and of course how to improve the distribution network so that the distribution loss is also minimized. So these are some of the good learnings I had with your team. And as you say, whenever we measure something, we can always improve. So you made us how to derive the baseline, and from the baseline we were able to see where we have gone forward. And now it has become a culture, and we are also setting targets year on year, and we are taking improvement projects in aligned to your inputs what you gave during the energy audits. So we are very happy to share you now our energy cost year on year, our efficiency goes up. That is the power consumption or the fuel consumption per kg of production comes down minimum 3 to 5%. And similarly, apart from that, as you say, now we are also our 30% of our revenue goes to the mature market, Europe and US. There the customers ask about the sustainability, the how you are reducing the carbon footprint. So as you say, this is also giving us more advantage in presenting ourselves as a responsible organization where we take care of the planet as well as the profits and the people. So it's a very, very important thing to be addressed by each and every organization, because without sustainable processes, the business continuity will be a challenge in the coming decades. And now itself, customers are demanding, what is your plan to become carbon neutral or water neutral? So we are forced to give a timeline with clear action points. So people who are aspiring to be a global player, there is no option left but to focus on sustainable operations in their businesses. So it's a very, very nice connect what I had with you 4 years back. That triggered us a lot of thoughts. It has benefited in the business as well as in our routines. And I really thank you and your team for that wonderful experience what we had 4 years back. Thank you, Venkat.
Thank you. Thank you, Dinesh. Thank you, Dinesh, and nice to hear from you. There's nothing sweet than hearing from the customers, client themselves to talk about what they have progressed. That's a good thing. But one point which you stressed on that is very wonderful, like the bandwidth. Usually we used to have a challenge whenever we do an assessment like this. As far as the quality is concerned, the Deming's rule goes, like, you're seeing the Six Sigma projects and all they take about why I should have a goalpost approach of this bandwidth of the tolerance, and why it not be within the mean, and why not be grazing the mean. That's what they demand, and then they do several projects on that, and then they go about. But as far as the process parameters are concerned, there is not an adequate amount of work has not been. I'm talking generally all the industries point of view. The process they are talking about 310 degrees to 350 degrees is the tempering temperature. About 30 degrees of a one they give it for that matter. Why not it be operating at the close to the mean? They don't think about. They operate at a higher side only, and thereby the people lose a sight of every 5 degrees rise of a temperature. If I give it in my process, about 3 to 4% of my energy excess I need have to utilize. That never gets sunk in their mind at all. That's nicely you brought about, and that you took it as a challenge also, Dinesh. It's wonderful, nice to hear from you. And without much talking from my side, and also thank you for having shared your views. Let us hear about what the audience have got to ask, or what is their demand from us to ask about. Maybe I leave it to the audience, please. You can ask questions specifically. I will try to answer the questions which you are putting forth. Over to the audience. It's an open house now.
Okay, hi again, Venkat. I'm going to tell you the questions that are coming in.
Please,
I think that will be
please,
easier.
please,
So we
please.
already have one question. Our first question is here. And it says, what is the difference of cost cutting and cost reduction?
Yeah, the cost cutting, I'll tell you whether the significant some examples I'll tell you also, Pallavi, so that it becomes clear. Cost cutting, whenever I mean, recall a problem comes, whatever the challenge comes, like for that matter, when the Twin Towers was hit and it's cascaded effects on various things when the economy got into a problem. The first thing the organization cuts as cost cutting is don't have a training programs done. That's a cost cutting. No training programs. Let us not travel by air for this one. Why don't we have it in a different way and reach out the customer? These are called cost cutting exercises. But the reduction part of it is the one which is sustainable. You're not truncating any of the activities. You are encouraging all the activities to be performed. Thereby, the utilization, that is the use part of it. I was talking about use and consumption. The consumption part of it you are trying to reduce. And that is what is the reduction which the organization need to be focused. I'm just trying to say an analogy for what is a cutting and what is a reduction. Reduction gives you a lot of in what we call sustained improvements you can go. Cutting is only for the temporary one. It may again erupt, it may again come back, and you will not be having anything. That is a very knee-jerk reaction, or it is not a permanent solution, Pallavi. That's what it is.
Okay, and next question says, we are already certified for ISO 50001. Would you still recommend going for energy efficiency audits?
Yes, what is that? Like, it depends on what you have done as far as the energy, management system is concerned. Management system is about plan, do, check, act cycle. That's what it is. Like, I have identified my significant energy use. If it is not done, the energy audit will be of helpful to find out whether the significant energy use, what you identified, is right or not. Many people, as far as the certification part is concerned, let me just tell you the flip side of it. The flip side of it is, like, if I can write the significant energy use in my energy aspect identification, that whichever equipment rating, power rating is more than 10 HP is significant, I can put it across, or whichever is more than 100 kW, kilowatt rating, is significant. But that 100 kilowatt power rating equipment will be running in for only about 4 hours a day, contributing to 120 hours only a month it will be. And that will not be significant. Whereas a 15 HP or the 15 kilowatt or 30 kilowatt motor, which will be running for 365 days, 24 hours, it gets masked, or it will not get surfaced at all. But still you can get a certificate, and having a system in place, this is what it is, and then you go about. But in the case of an energy efficiency assessments like that, what we are now doing, we analyze it right from the transformer losses. What is the neutral current loss? What is that happening? How the neutral current loss can be minimized? What is the Joule effect of the temperature of the conductor it is? How that temperature rise will have an effect on the power consumption? And then looking at other sources and use part of it. So it gives an insight. I will not say that will form an input. Energy efficiency will form an input towards setting up a good energy aspect identification, and then go about. So that's what is the understanding, and that's what it will enable you to perform better. Yes, Pallavi.
Thank you so much, Venkat. So we have an interesting question here. It says, how do I convince management to refocus to start on cost reduction?
Yeah, that's a good one. See, management, if you go for that matter, I don't think every management will sit on the edges of the seat when they hear this much of a saving is there. Oh, this much of a saving. See, please note it. Many a times we look at the purchase only. Those are the things which we demand. The purchasing person will be called upon and then say, why this raw material cost is this much? Why don't you reduce 50 paise per kg over there? Because that 50 paise reduction or 1 rupee reduction directly adds on to your bottom line without having an extra new client, or no efforts on marketing or sales, and need not have to be done. It can be done. So that's what they will be focused on. But when you go to the management, top management, and then say, this consumes this much amount of an energy, for that matter, the use of this, I'm using a compressed air for this activity of a cleaning of my mold. This cleaning of my mold with 7 kg working pressure of line pressure, I'm using it for cleaning. It can be done by a blower for that matter. And this blower cost is only about this much of a rupees for that sake. And the return of investment is within 15 days time or 20 days time is the return of investment. Whereas this is guzzles more power for cleaning the same activity which I need have to do, consumes this much amount of energy. The people will be interested, the management will be interested. So when you talk to the management, you should talk with the numbers. The language varies. I mean, because they are going to be the investing people. So when you talk in terms of financial value to them, then none of the management with a return of investment is this what it is, not extend up to 2 years and beyond, because the management will not look at anything beyond 1 year of return of investment, because they say later a year, my projects are different, my augmentation is different for that matter, my product mix is going to be different, so they may just pull you or push you across. But if you say the return of investment is less than 1 year, within 3 months we can have this return of investment, and this is what will fetch you to the bottom line. Tell me which management will not agree to that. Probably your presentation, your analysis of data, and the way in which you are going with them need not have to be convinced at all. Convincing is the next stage. The moment you put the numbers to the management in the right way, they will gleefully accept to you and then say to go about. But you have to be careful. The numbers what you present should be genuine with a lot of factor of safety. We call it as in the fabrication, other things, a factor of safety. Likewise, you have to have the emergency part of it, the contingency part of it need to be well planned, and the numbers have to be projected in a way that is realistic. Then they will.
Thank you, Venkat. I think this one is more for Mr. Dinesh, because it more talks about the industry perspective. So very similar to the question that Venkat answered, it is saying that having worked on major savings, later we get projects with long CBA, more than 5 years. How to secure investment from management for such projects? What should be the guideline on return on investment?
See, any management, they will look at hard numbers. So always, whenever there is an energy report, we split it into 3 categories. One is without investment, what is the savings? And within a period of 6 months, 1 to 6 months, with investment, what will be the saving? And beyond 6 months, what is the savings and what is the investment? Normally, the return on investment within a year or even sometimes up to 2 years, the management will agree, because it's going to be a running business and it's going to be a recurring savings. But first the plant team should demonstrate the commitment, and first we should do our homework properly. That is, we should go to the management that already I have finished my homework where there is without investment, these are the savings already happening with the baseline data and the improved data. For example, I am saying that I have arrested the leak. Then I should be able to demonstrate the compressor units from X, it has come down to Y, and that's a payback. So with this clear homework, we should go approach the management, and any management will not say no to any cost reduction exercise. And that too, energy. Every management looks for energy reduction because it is also impacting the earth, the plant earth. So definitely the management will adhere to the what is the recommendation, but we should prepare the homework properly. We should demonstrate our intent that we are really serious and we really mean it. So once the investment is given, there also we should give a clear timeline by what time I will complete each and every activity. And if there is any external support required, that should also be transparently communicated to the management that though this project is feasible, but the internal domain knowledge is not there, so we'll involve a third party to implement that improvement points. Like that, it should be a transparent communication with clear numbers, and it's all about commitment. Then the management will not say no. Only when there's a payback beyond 2 years, or there is no continuity of that operation beyond 2 years, then it may be looked in a different fashion. Otherwise, if it is a running business and we are thinking of next 50 years, how the business will grow, and when we are very clear that that particular process is not going to get eliminated, no management is safe for a payback of less than 2 years. It's my experience with my management.
That's true. That's true. Well said. Well said.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So, Venkat, the next question is normalization mandatory in ISO 50001?
Yes, I mean, see, more than mandatory part of it, you should apply practically why a normalization is required. Because I was mentioning it to you some time back, if I have to take a baseline properly, and that is COVID-smitten times and whatever it is, like different occasions. So normalization of the data will enable you to set a realistic number, what you are going to set. So that will enable you, or that will help you out towards that exercise. So if you do not normalize, so depending, it need not have to be normalized also at times. Like, oh, I mean, it's not a mandatory, but if you want to derive something which is to be realistic, and for you have to set as a challenge for the team to achieve it. So normalization, if required to be done in terms of number of shifts, it could be in terms of the products mix, whatever it is, like, whatever you take it for that sake and then do it, it's well and good.
Thanks, Venkat. Thank you again. So we have a great question here now. It says, we are engaged with the sustainability in few pillars, namely environmental, ethics, sustainable procurement, and labor and human rights. Will environment management system under the ISO 50001 benefit in our sustainable performance? As we are in the midst of being certified to ISO 14 and 45000, on top of being certified already by ISO 9001 and 37001.
Yes. See, I was telling a few minutes back, what's called sustainability has got a varied subject. It is where demands are so high also, which I was mentioning it to you. These are the basic steps towards you achieving it. I was mentioning it to you in a nutshell. What is 14,000 and 50,000? How you apply it is very important. So by means of, if I want to become a carbon neutral towards the sustainability part of a GHG emission as one of the things which I have to take it, I have to set a baseline for myself. So 50,001 will be helping you out in terms of between the boundaries from gate to gate, or within the operating boundaries what you have got, and within the controls what you can exert within scope 1 and scope 2. You can find with ISO 50001 what is the GHG emissions, what you are doing to an extent, what is that you can understand, and how to minimize it also. And if I want to become zero, with that minimization, what is the excess what you have got, which you need out to what call balance it, you can go in for any other projects which you can sponsor it and go about it to become a net zero sometime later. So in that way, the 50,001 will be useful. And 14,001 also, I was mentioning it to you. See how I have generated the waste. How do I recycle the waste? And why at all the waste to be generated to that extent? So it depends on your application part of it. So if I minimize my waste generation, if I recycle it and I put it in a circular economy for that matter, and the GHG calculations can be minimized. So it sets you an extent of you achieving to a level. It doesn't mean that's what it is. So then comes the question about you evaluating the GHG emissions, and then how you have taken efforts towards minimizing, and what is that you are trying to offset. All these things comes later. Okay, so this basic standards will enable you to reach over there, and it will take you, but how you apply it to a longer distance also you can cover, but you have to apply it to the true spirit of what your requirements and demands are.
Thank you, Venkat. Thank you. Just last 3 questions now. Just like ISO 14 and 45000 can be considered in integrated management system, can ISO 14001 and 50001 be integrated for certification?
Why not? It's a very obvious. It is like I was mentioning that in some of my presentation also. The basic structure of the document remains the same. The only difference is if I want to go in depth of it, energy aspect need to be identified of a significant energy use and energy reviews what you have to conduct as far as 50,001 is concerned. Whereas in 14,001, you need to identify the significant environmental aspects which would impact the environment. That's the difference in which I can see about it, and it can be very well integrated. Of course, it is an integrated management system. That is the reason 2015 version has undergone this change, and all this, in 2018, the energy management system also came out in 2018 to merge with that 2015 documentation of that high-level structured documentation. So the question is obvious. Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. I am not sure whether ISO 50001 talks about this, but again, we have an interesting question. It says, should we have ratio of conventional source to alternative source of energy consumed by business? do we have any benchmark for this?
No, benchmark, that's a good one. I would like to say conventional energy source, you have to identify, like this is what the conventional energy source of non-renewable energy source I'm using. And there are certain states which demands that you should use the non-renewable energy for that sake, 5% or 10% for that sake, and then get a certificate. Also, say some of the down south states are emphasizing on it. So it depends on a legal requirement when it comes, then you don't have an alternative than to use a renewable energy source and then go about it. So, and then conventional energy source, how you can minimize it and how I can migrate to a renewable energy source, that you need to think about. Okay, and that ratio, of course, you can see the standard doesn't talk about explicitly, that it's up to you to make that system embracing the requirements.
Thank you, Venkat. And we have the last question. I think this is more optimum for Mr. Dinesh to answer this. How much percentage for cost reduction should we target to get optimal company performance?
I don't see any standard answer for this. Our
That's
organization, we follow 2.5% minimum on the revenue. In every business plan, for the year business plan, we take 2.5% on revenue as our cost reduction target. But this can vary from every organization to organization. So it can be 5%, it can be 10%. So there's no limit. It all depends upon where we operate. If the potential is more, we have to improve the target. Suppose we are able to consistently achieve this 2.5, then we have to revise upward. These are all, I don't know. It depends upon the organization to fix the target. Ultimately, we have to improve year on year. The efficiency has to go up.
That's right. That's right. It's well said. Yeah, there's nothing written cast in stone, like, you need to apply. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Venkat. Thank you so much, Mr. Dinesh. Venkat, if you have anything else, maybe you can summarize the slides and then we can end the session for today.
Yeah, that's right. So just nothing else to say. I should thank you all for participating. And I'm unable to minimize the screen. I'm just trying my best to minimize it.
No worries, no worries, no worries. I think we are at the fag end of the session.
Yeah, that's right. This is what we saw, and the question and answer sessions we had. Thank you for that. And
once again, very warm thanks, and we are really delighted, truly delighted that you could join us for our webinar today. Thank you to all our attendees. I would like to request you that once you end the session, there's a small survey, only 3 questions that will come. Please fill in the survey. That would really help us to improve for future webinars. So thank you so much, everybody, wherever you are in the region. Good afternoon, good evening, good night. Have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.